Welcome back to Create Wealth Through Franchising Podcast and Kim Daly TV. In my studio today, two gentlemen from Jacksonville, Florida, who are franchisees of Rolling Suds. Their names are Dave Passero and Mike Gray. Dave and Mike, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the studio of Kim Daly TV.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you very much for having us.
We're going to have so much fun because I am very intrigued with Rolling Suds. When I saw the video of the guys cleaning the Superdome, the roof of the Superdome before the Super Bowl, I was like, what is going on at this power washing franchise? I need to meet some of these amazing franchisees. Now, I know that wasn't you because that was in New Orleans, but let's start at the beginning of your story because you are a father-in-law and son-in-law team, which is kind of interesting. And I'm very curious how that came about. So one of you start us at the beginning of your story and tell us how you ended up as franchisees of Rolling Suds.
I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But I worked for a family-owned business, a professional services business for 38 years. And it grew from a 30 or 40 person company to 200 plus with 9 offices. I felt it was time to leave after 38 years. And I was the largest stockholder when I left and I sold it. And the people in the company bought me out. And I thought, I'm young enough to do something, but what is it? So I spent about a year looking at different franchises, looking at different opportunities. And Rolling Suds came across, and I ended up talking to them for a bit. I actually talked to the CEO, and after a couple of meetings, I talked to the CEO, and I turned him down. And he said, "Why?" He goes, "You seem so interested." I said, "I am interested in it, but the problem is, I feel like it's a younger person's game, and I need somebody younger to come in with me." And at the time, I didn't have anybody. I was planning on doing it myself. And then our daughter and Mike and the kids at the time, was one kid, came to Florida for the holiday. And we started talking about it. And I was showing Mike. I was excited. I wanted to share with Mike all the different opportunities that had come across my desk at different franchise. We came across this one. And I know Mike was looking to, and Megan, his wife, were looking to move back to the East Coast. And Mike said, "If you get into this Rolling Suds, I'll have one with you." And that's how it started for me.
Same thing, obviously, for me. I was in Colorado running a branch of a roofing company as one of the regional sales managers. And long story short, my wife did not like it out there. Wanted to get back. All of our families on the East Coast. So, we're kind of figuring out a plan, but, this plan with Dave came a little quicker than we thought. So we decided to, go in together and get this started. And we moved back in December of last year. So Dave started it without me here. And then I joined him here in December, and it's been going great ever since.
It's great. So, and you've been franchisees now for how long?
We're approaching the year.
Amazing. Okay, so you got a year under your belt. So I want to go back to, it took you a year to explore franchises. Okay, because as a franchise consultant, you're making me want to crawl under my desk right now, Dave. I'm assuming you were doing this on your own. Please tell me you weren't working with an experienced franchise consultant, because that would really make me crawl under my desk.
I was doing both, and I wasn't really happy with the person I had. He was giving me leads that I just wasn't something I was there. I kind of shifted gears and thought, well, maybe I should buy an existing company, try to get a good price and then take that company and make it better. That was my thought. And then I got introduced to another franchise person, and she led me into this.
Okay, so you worked with the first consultant, didn't really help you too much, but the second consultant had a better feel and maybe some better relationships and was able to offer you Rolling Suds, and you made this connection. So when you first said no to Rolling Suds, talk a little bit about that. Compared to other options you were looking at, what was lacking other than that you felt you was a young man's game? Was there anything else in there?
Yes, there was, because I came from a professional services company, essentially a white collar business, going into a blue collar business. We had sales, but our sales were different in terms of, you know, landing large projects that would last 2 years type of versus some of the things we do here. And I think what scared me the most is I'm not very handy. And the trucks and the maintenance part of that business was not something that I really thought I could do. And I would have to hire it all out. And I thought, you know what? I want to get into something that what I do well. And that's what really turned me off and then it was starting over. I thought with a company, if I buy an existing company, I'm not starting over versus a franchise where you start from zero.
So you overcame a lot of different hurdles. Let's pick on that last one, because I do hear that a lot. People think, oh, if I buy an existing business for sale, that I'm not going to be like starting over. And I'm like, who says? Who says you're not starting over? It's still your first time in that business. And so then you go and pay a multiple of that business only to figure out that to take it where you want to go, you have your own learning curve and you need more money. That's usually the case, right? So oftentimes when you start to really think through what you're doing when you're comparing buying an existing business and starting from scratch in the right franchise with the right mentorship and systems can be the faster and cheaper way to do it. And then you get to control every aspect of how that brand is brought into the market and the reputation that that business has versus not knowing what reputation the company has in the consumer's mind and then maybe having to correct for that. So that's just my 2 cents of, 23 years of being a franchise consulting and coming up against that. And it does make sense, though, in some cases for people to buy established business for sales. And I always tell my franchisees, I want you to build this to sell it. So I do sort of talk out of both sides of my mouth a little bit, but it's all unique to the individual. And that's the whole point of this interview, this podcast, is to help those of you who are listening, who are on the sideline and not in the game, to know that you don't have to figure all of these things out on your own. You have a resource in Kim Daly. I have 23 years of relationship and experience to offer to you, and I'm not pushy. This isn't about me doing it my way. It's about me helping you understand all of the options so you can feel good about the decision that you're making. So just a little side note right there. So Dave, so that was one objection. So go back to the resale and then the not being handy thing and going from a white collar to a blue collar. This is a very astute thought and something that I think a lot of people may dismiss a business like this for the exact same reason. So how did you overcome those thoughts?
Well, I'm somewhat of a risk taker, and I thought, being handy part of it, Mike alleviated some of that. Why not jump right in? And I know I was successful in a different life, and I believe I could be successful in this life. And to be quite honest, it's different, but I love it. It's quite different than what I'm used to. But I enjoy it.
So Mike, so you come in as the young guy, the young man, answering the young man's call. So I'm guessing you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting and you're also kind of a handy guy?
Yes. I have construction and I owned a flooring company with my dad and then also in roofing. So I have been in that, home services, construction realm since I was fresh out of high school and even in high school.
Your whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. My
Working
whole
for
life.
your dad. Yeah.
Yep. So that's where the mixture of him being not necessarily corporate, it was a family business, but that kind of business, the back end, the higher decisions and all that. That's his expertise, and I know how to work the home services, work with the crews, work with I wouldn't say I'm a mechanic. I'm handy though. I can
Much handier than me.
Yeah.
You can get the job done. Okay. So what advice would you have if there is somebody listening to this who loves the idea of the power washing? And we'll get to what the business actually does, but in general, it's power washing. So if there is somebody listening to this and they're like stuck in, that kind of like, I'm not that guy. What advice would the two of you have then? Do you think that you absolutely need that general manager you're hiring to be that person that you're not? Or now that you're in it, do you realize it wasn't, you were overthinking it?
I think that you need somebody in that role for sure. In fact, well, I don't know if you're going to get into this. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but if there's one thing that we could use some help with from corporate is the maintenance part of it, where Mike is good at it, but it's like the first time you do it. And unfortunately, in this business that I'm finding, nothing breaks unless you're going a million miles an hour and you got 10, 15 jobs and you got to get it done. It just doesn't break on a Sunday when you have nothing going on. For someone like me, I needed that. I would have had to have hired that out.
Yeah, your first few hires are definitely important. If you're not a handy person, or hire your weaknesses. A good GM, or even just the first lead technician that you're going to work into a GM or a salesperson, whatever you're lacking. A lot of people in our thing don't come from sales backgrounds, so that's where they're lacking. Or like Dave said, the handy part, or learning how the actual home services side of it works. You can hire somebody. There's a ton of good people out there, to help you out, to get you started on that.
That was a big fear of mine too, was finding people, especially in Florida where we are, there were no jobs available, but corporate put us at ease, and we put ads out there and we were able to find people for sure.
Yeah, I love that. For somebody who's listening to this right now, what I would say is, as your franchise consultant, I would much rather you be the salesperson, because that's what drives the revenue of the company. I'd rather you trip over that I need a handyman person who you can hire than to come into business ownership, being the handyman, being the tinkerer, being the I can do the job, but I'm lacking the skill and actually, or the confidence in being able to grow the business, because you won't have the business to grow if you don't have the sales and leadership and business ownership skills. So that's probably why, if Rolling Suds is, kind of giving the characteristics of the franchisee, or any blue collar franchise you're looking at lists the characteristics and says no experience is necessary, I'm guaranteeing you that's why. What's more important is that you can be the leader of the people. The tendency sometimes for people that are handy is to get in there and pitch, hint, and do the work. And then if you're doing the work, you can't be growing the business at the same time. So it's way more important that your time is spent on building and scaling the business than knowing the how to. And if you don't know how to do it, then you won't be like at the risk of stepping in and trying to do it. That would be my 2 cents on that. Ideally, if you have some, like if you grew up on a farm, or you play with your cars and you have some handyman skills, or your wife says, yeah, my husband is handy in the home, and you can do enough to be dangerous, but you also have that business skill, that's where that would be the perfect combination for a business like this. Dave, you said this is different, but you're really enjoying it. So let's go back to that. What is it different from, and why are you really enjoying ownership in Rolling Suds?
Well, I like being out. I like interacting with people. And I hate saying this, but it seems easier than I thought, sales. And I think it's just connecting with people. Finding the right people is a little bit harder, but once you find, and if someone gives you 30 seconds or 5 minutes, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, he was more nervous about the sales aspect, but he's a personal guy, and that's what it comes down to, is just talking to people and building the relationships. So
once I learned that,
once you learn the Rolling Suds way and the back end of the business of how it works, then the sales part comes,
easy. It was a lot easier than I expected.
Yeah, so the training fully prepared you to hit the ground running.
It did.
And you went in a little nervous.
Yeah, from the time we started to the time we ended, it was night and day.
Right, and there was a wealth of knowledge in this franchise. The founding family, the Wendlings, have been around for 34 years, so they've seen every good thing, every mistake that you're going to make for the most part, and then helping that with the, all the other training that they give you is, extremely helpful to get this thing going.
I love that because I think that, again, a lot of people feel insecure about having never done it before. And they use that as sort of like a mountain in the way instead of just a pebble that can be stepped over, especially once you're partnered with the right franchisor that has good training and good validation from their existing owners that is all in place. You don't have to make that a reason you can't look at a business that's totally out of your scope. In fact, most of the businesses that I show to people are totally from left field, and people are like, wait, I don't know anything about this, but that's the whole process of being open and exploring franchising. I wanted one of you to really explain, so we understand that it's power washing, but tell us a little more about, just so for context, not that I'm not promoting any specific brand. This episode is not about promoting Rolling Suds, but for context of a conversation, let's tell the viewers, the listeners, a little bit about what you do and who your customers are.
Do power washing of pretty much anything exterior of a building, a house, anything that you can clean on the outside, especially here in Florida. Things get dirty very quickly with the humidity and all the rain and the water everywhere. So it's a very busy business here. We definitely are built more for commercial. The way that our machines are set up, the way our trucks are set up, we're built for speed and efficiency. So we can do a job typically, faster than most companies, especially commercial. We can reach higher. We can do 4 or 5 stories from the ground without requiring lifts and everything like that. And then for residential wise, we can do them very quickly. We can do a residential house in about 30, 45 minutes, cleaning the whole house.
And people from the residential side, they don't want someone sitting there outside of your house for 5 hours. They want you in and out and do a good job.
Yeah, we want a good job. Yep.
Yeah. That's a good point to bring up, just because I think a lot of people may think, wait, why did you even buy a franchise for a power washing, right? I could just go buy my own equipment, put a magnetic sign on my truck and be in business. So you're speaking a little bit to that value proposition that even in the seemingly simple business, again, when you're partnered with the right franchisor, there is a why. There's a value proposition to why you go into business for yourself, but not by yourself, by partnering yourself with a franchisor.
People don't realize that when you think you can just go buy the power washer from Home Depot and stuff. When you get into the bigger stuff, and they can go do some residential, but you're not going to have the equipment to get the stuff done that we can. And then you don't understand all the expenses that come about. A lot of times those companies tend to be a little cheaper and stuff like that on their price, and then it gets a little slow or equipment breaks and it gets tough.
Plus, they ruin things.
Yeah, well, damage things with their own equipment too. They're all not using the right chemicals and stuff like that on different, situations or stings it can cause some serious damage if you don't know what you're doing. So that's where it's, Rolling Suds is kind of bringing the professionalism
And a soft wash there. People say it's a misnomer about power washing. The only thing you're power washing is flat work concrete and sidewalks and curbs. Everything else has some power to it, but it's more of a soft, so you don't ruin anything.
Just to feed off of what he said too, if people don't want you there, the speed at which we can do commercial as well. What might take another company a month to do an apartment complex or whatever, we might be able to do in 2 or 3. The amount of time that how fast we can get it done with the way that we are set up is very, very enticing, which is why we're getting, large commercial things, large national scale, national accounts and stuff like that.
So I'm guessing that those larger jobs come with larger price tags as well.
Not only larger price tags, but also reoccurring revenue year after year, month after month after month, which is a big deal.
Do you mind sharing the discrepancy maybe between like a large commercial job, the ticket on that, just compared to like a residential job?
Yeah, I mean, you do an apartment complex, you're cleaning anywhere, 10 to 20 grand, up to 30 grand, or more, and then a residential job might be $300,
300 to
$350.
Yeah, sometimes 1,000, depending on if they want to do everything.
Just a regular house wash, you're looking $300 or so in our area. So,
right.
Yeah.
Does it almost make it not worth your time to do residential work, or does residential work pay faster and like it gives you kind of quicker cash flow?
Yep. residential is definitely important. You got to have a balance. And for at least from our experience, commercial takes longer to get paid. It takes longer to get approved. Sometimes you may give a bid and not do the job for 6 months or a year sometimes, from what we've seen. Residential is definitely important because we can do so many so quickly. And then, you get it locked in and you do these people every year. And now you have residential, residual income coming in every year, and they pay that same day typically.
So, Dave, are you investing your time on the sales side? Are you going out and networking in the community to find these big commercial jobs?
Both. We're actually both doing it. The franchise has some pretty good lead generation that we brought in. You get a lead, you get even a warm lead, and we turn that warm lead into a job. That's our roles right now. If someone were to call in sick or something and we need a job done, Mike might jump on it more so than me. Or if a truck breaks, something happens, Mike will jump on that. But yeah, it's both of our roles really. And to me, kind of going back to what you said earlier, sales is number one. You've got to have the sales. Everything else will take care of itself, but you've got to have the sales. And that's where it came, in my professional services company, there was sales and this is sales. And it's not that difficult. I mean, it can be difficult where, we've seen some franchisees that tend to work in their business instead of on the business. And they're kind of spinning their wheels all that.
In the beginning, you're going to be doing, more, to make sure the daily operations are going, but
right.
You have to work, on the business. And
the sales is it.
It's all that matters. None of the other maintenance and all of that matters if you don't have the sales to do the jobs like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
All it comes down to
100%. Owning a business is always about customer acquisition, right? So if you're out there listening and you hear the word sales, because that's a misnomer. People think, well, I'm buying a franchise. I don't have to go sell anything. And then they make you Daly. And I'm like, wait a minute, right?
The furthest from the truth. If someone thinks that, they should not buy.
Yeah, exactly. You're always in the customer acquisition game. That's what owning a business is all about. I always toss it back and just say, hey, if the franchisor could generate all the leads they need for your business, why would they even need you? And it would just grow corporate territory. So the franchisors are building a brand using other people's money and other people's time to build those customers around the country. That's the whole reason that this is a franchise. So customer acquisition is a thing. But I love what you said, Dave. You said it's easier than I thought it was going to be. You said that a little bit ago.
Talk to Mike. I hate saying it out loud. This is easier than I thought. But I think, especially in the, not so much residential, but in the commercial, there is such a big demand. And I don't think that the competition is large. And the competition, some of them don't do a really good job.
The competitive factors sometimes are so low. The barrier is so low. It's like if we just show up when we say we're going to show up and we do the job, to the bid, and we're professional in how we look and how we treat people when we're on their property. Like, it's like, come on, that can't be the reason you can build a multi-million-dollar business. I'm like, no, yeah, it is the reason.
That's the competitive advantage that we have. Residential, you may have people just focus solely on price. And, that's when it gets highly competitive, but there's not as many people out there in the commercial space.
I see that little Fish window cleaning cup behind you. And Fish window cleaning is another franchise that I've been blessed to be a part of for over 20 years. We took that little mom and pop, started by a husband and wife team in St. Louis, Missouri in 1990s. And then all their kids have grown up in that business. Speaking of, it becoming a family business. And now one of their oldest sons is the president of the franchise. It's such a great American wealth generating franchise story, not to mention that all of the franchisees that we've created, and actually the current, not the president of the franchise, the son is like the CEO of the franchise. The president of the franchise was actually a franchise placement as a franchisee. When he was in career transition, he worked with a franchise consultant. They showed him Fish window cleaning. He became a standout franchisee, and then he was elevated to the president of the franchise. It's such a great story. So, but the whole point is not to talk about Fish window cleaning, but in the fish window cleaning business, right? People think, oh my gosh, I'm looking at a window cleaning franchise, Kim. I'm like, yeah, but it's the competitive advantages are the same things we're talking about here, that you show up, that your cars and are marked, your employees wear the red jersey, you have that professionalism about you. You can take your credit card as a form of payment, like simple things like that are what makes sometimes these mom and pop, highly fragmented industries more sophisticated when we wrap it in a franchise, brand and a system. So really awesome. So to wrap this up, so what are you guys looking forward to? Dave, are you one day looking to retire and leave this to your daughter and son-in-law?
Mike and I talked, and 5 to 7 years, we'll take a look at it and see where we're at. And, we'll have to make a decision if we want to scale it, and we have scaled it and we want to continue to scale it. But at some point we can say, hey, we could sell it, split it and move on. Mike will move on, or Mike keeps it and buys me out, and I, maybe work as a consultant here and there. There are so many different avenues to take that, it's hard to know. If I'm still having fun and my health is still there, then yeah.
Have you ever regretted investing this money, Dave, moving on after 38 years in a corporate scenario? Has there ever been a day, like a hard day, when you have 15 jobs and your equipment breaks, where you're like, why did I do this to myself? Or do you mostly just feel that, blessed and abundant and this is just great?
No, it's blessed. You know why? Because the hard days in franchising, were hard days in my other company. We had good days, we had bad days, we had ups and downs. In 38 years, imagine where the economy was 38 years ago and where we are today, or the last couple of years. You work hard, keep your nose to the grindstone, and stay steady, you'll make money. And I'm enjoying that. So no, there are a few days where we, maybe we'll get frustrated with things. Once in a while with some of our employees, why they don't think the way we think. But then Mike has to bring me back to, it's not the white collar employees that I'm used to. So I had a little bit of that to get used to.
And at least it's your kind of hard. That's what I wanted to say to you, right? Like, so it's hard either way, but at least it's your hard. And when you work it out, it's your learning curve and it's your revenue and it's your reward and it's your time. And so there's something magical about the word your, right? When you get to own it versus doing it for somebody else's bottom line.
I remember with fond memories of our company, my old company, when it was smaller, a little more family oriented. And this is kind of nice because it's a little more family oriented now versus more of a corporate. When you grow to a certain level, you have no choice but to become corporate. And this kind of brings me back to my roots when I first started. And I'm actually enjoying that a lot as well.
Yeah. So, Mike, is your father a little bit perturbed that you moved on from his family business and now you're working with your in-laws? Is there like a little competition here?
I went out and branched out in Colorado, and he's just happy that we're closer back again. With us and the grandkids.
When you were talking about wanting to come back and mentioning me, because he knew I was looking. He mentioned to Mike, maybe you should talk to Dave because he's looking out. He should buy something.
Yeah, he did. He did recommend talking to him.
Yeah. So it was his idea.
Yeah, and they get along. Yeah, we get along great. So it's all fun. They support us big time, and it's a great family thing.
It's really good. It's an American dream. Get your whole family involved in it. Everybody benefits. Everybody gets to grow. You get to work together. Hopefully you all like each other, which it sounds like you do. So, it doesn't get much better than that. I love this story. I love it for so many people who are out there listening, because I know that many, many people who are listening to this right now have the exact same dream. So let's go ahead and end it on that note, because if you are ready to begin your own journey to find your own American dream story through franchising, well, Kim Daly wants to be your franchise consultant and your daily mindset coach. So please follow the link in the description right now, and I will reach out to you right away. Mike and Dave, thank you so much for blessing us, sharing your story, and good luck to you in the second year of your business.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
A pleasure to meet you.